Corrupt Authority by yours truly. A small battalion of guards stood at alert at the outgoing end of Victory Road, Pokeballs in hand, grimly set upon catching any unauthorized person who emerged from the darkness. As they watched the mouth of the cave, a sudden dragon roar issued from within, followed by a large cloud of smoke that erupted forth. Two human forms charged out through the smoke screen, pumping their arms to escape from the whirling ball of death just behind. A Charizard swooped through the smoke and slammed its foot down upon the spinning Pokemon, squashing it to the ground and forcing a halt. As the smoke screen cleared, the guards gathered around the newcomers, fully intent on identifying them. At first, the two young men kept their backs turned, looking upon the Charizard that had saved them, and the Donphan under its feet. Then they turned, and the guards recognized the description of the trainer clad in red. "I wouldn't get too close," he said calmly. "This Donphan is crazy. Give him space, and he'll probably wander back into the tunnel when he wakes up." "Mr. Red!" stuttered one of the guards, standing stiffly at attention. "It's an honor to see you in action before the tournament, sir." "Mr. Red will need his Pokemon restored back to full fitness before his first morning match," Kenta said in the irate tone of an impatient officer. "The sooner, the better. If you would, gentlemen, please direct your energies towards the detainment of the intruders. They cannot be far behind us." Kenta's uniform still bore the rank of sergeant, making him the most senior officer amongst the staff. The men regarded him without question. "Roger that. We'll get them if the Pokemon don't." They exchanged brief salutes, and the party separated. A short distance away, Hibiki watched the facade with fascination. "I never get tired of watching my brother act," he said with a grin. "Today, the world's gonna get a show to remember." "We'd better not linger here," came Ivy's voice beside him. "Let's get to the stadium before anyone notices the distortions in the air." Hibiki turned back and looked at what, to himself and the rest of the world, was empty space. In fact, he was virtually invisible too. The only sign of their presence was three shadows upon the ground, and a wavy blur of the background when they moved. Hibiki could only describe the distortion as how something might look through the hot air over a fire. "This is nuts!" he whispered excitedly, as they made their way quickly towards the enormous dome structure that was Indigo Coliseum. "We're invisible! They didn't even see us when we came out of the smoke!" "Refraction," Ivy said in a self-satisfied tone. "An ability unique to Galacorn, in which they can bend light waves around themselves to blend into the environment. It raises evasiveness, and wild Galacorn only ever reveal themselves to pure-hearted maidens." "Kinda like Latias," Hibiki mused. "Wait a second. So are you saying that you're a pure-hearted maiden?" "Maybe. Probably not. But my mother was. She passed Galacorn down to me just before the trainer ban interrupted my journey." There was a note of sly amusement in Ivy's voice. "Were you doubting the goodness of my heart, then?" Hibiki felt his ears burning. He didn't answer. "I'm just kidding." Ivy's voice was casual, but it soon turned serious and frustrated. "Ah, look at the entrance. It's crowded, and there are dogs at the door. They'll sniff us out." The two trainers were still amidst trees and stone pillars that led to the competitors' quarters of the Indigo Coliseum. The main entrance led out to a vast parking lot, where legions of people were already pouring in, despite the relatively early hour. As Ivy had observed, wardens in blue uniforms stood at the civilian entrance, assisted by every canine sentinel from Growlithe to Mightyena. Being invisible would prove useless if they were set upon by Pokemon bloodhounds. "Galacorn has wings, right?" Hibiki whispered. "Can't he fly us over the top of the arena?" "Not an option," Ivy replied. "It would disrupt his light refraction, and he can only carry people while walking anyway." "Jeez, then what good is a horse's wings?" thought Hibiki cynically. "Wait, I've got a better idea. Look to the right." Hibiki followed Ivy's instructions, and his eyes fell upon a set of double doors around the back of the stadium, facing away from the parking lot. It might have been a simple storage shed, except for the fact that the blonde-haired head of Topaz was disappearing through it. "The Challenger's waiting area?" he mused. "So it would seem. Come on." Ivy's camouflaged form hurried away, and Hibiki hastened to stay within Galacorn's light-bending range. "But wouldn't it be guarded?" "I'll bet it was, until all the guards posted there stacked up on Victory Road's exit." Ivy paused at the door. "We can get through to the stadium seating this way. It still won't be easy, but the other routes are too dangerous." She pulled open the door, then to the startling of Hibiki, gave a shriek before covering her mouth. "And what if there had been a guard on this side?" came the voice of an older girl. "One-san!" "Never mind, get in, and bring your friend with you." Hibiki felt Ivy's invisible hand yank him inside, and a moment later, Galakorn's light distortion wore off. Standing before them, with arms crossed, was a slender young woman in her early 20s, whose most prominent features were purple hair and golden glasses. Hibiki took only a second to recognize her. Rosette Cedars, the champion from Heron. Wait, did Ivy just refer to her as Big Sister? "I didn't know you guys were related," Hibiki blurted out, not knowing what to say. Rosette glanced at him. "Why else would I be standing here?" she said calmly. "I knew Ivy and Even were coming. You caused a lot of commotion for so early in the morning." All at once, Hibiki noticed that a crowd of trainers had begun to gather, attracted by Ivy's shriek of surprise from earlier. There wasn't all that many, since the majority of masters were still to arrive, but Hibiki only recognized the faces of Topaz and Blue among them. A couple looked at Ivy and himself, though most eyes were trained upon the unfamiliar Galakorn. Sorry to bother you all," Hibiki said meekly. "We were just, saying hi. We'll be going now. Nothing to see here." All at once, the double doors burst open behind him, and Kenta and Red marched through and slammed them shut, breathing heavily. Their backs were turned for the moment. "Lousy fanboys," Red grumbled, glaring at Kenta, who was wiping his brow with a hat. "What did I say, Gold? Didn't I tell you that sticking around out there would draw unwanted attention?" "I'm sorry, okay?" Kenta replied, in a defensive, whiny voice. "I needed to confirm that the trainer spectators were allowed to bring their Pokemon inside." The two of them stopped arguing and looked slowly behind them, suddenly aware that they were being watched. In a way, Hibiki was glad that the attention was off of him, but it wasn't really any better. The silence was so thick that it could be cut with a scyther claw. Hi, everyone," Red finally said lamely. "I'm Red. This is Gold." The next few minutes were a blur to Hibiki. Questions and exclamations came thundering down upon them like a series of unrelenting ocean waves. At first, everyone was interested in Red, where he had been, what he'd been doing all this time, and why he had suddenly decided to come back now of all times. But steadily, Red's answers turned the eye of public interest towards Kenta, and all faces, even Blue's, aimed towards him. Kenta covered his own face with his officer hat, and after a few unrequited inquiries, held up his hands for silence. "I want to tell you guys what's going on just as much as you want to know," he said. "But there are more Pokemon Masters who still have to arrive first. When the tournament is ready to commence, I'll have a message for everyone. For now, is there a room me and Red can stay in?" Instantly, several forms were uttered of the question, "What? How come you get to hang out with Red?" especially from Blue. However, Hibiki felt the collar of his shirt snatched from behind, and then Red was dragging him and Kenta through the crowd of masters and down a hallway with a series of doors. Rosette, who had somehow gotten ahead of them, pointed a helpful finger into one of the rooms, and Red pulled them in without a second's hesitation. Hibiki looked back just as she was shutting the door. Thanks for your assist, but why are you helping us?" "Because you brought Ivy to me, and I've been wanting to speak with her for a while now." Rosette waved her hand with a small smile. "Bye now," and the door clicked shut. Red moved in to lock the door, and Hibiki noticed that his backpack wasn't on anymore. He turned around to see Kenta holding the backpack and staring wide-eyed at the trainer matchup chart on the wall. A second later, he promptly yanked down his pants. Underneath, he was wearing black and gold shorts, but Hibiki put a hand over his eyes anyway. "Jeez, dude! Why don't you put on some 80s porn music while you're at it?" Kenta pulled a pair of Brendan Birch-style black pants from Red's backpack and tugged them on. "I'd laugh at that, but frankly, I'm trying not to throw up here. Come over and have a look at the pairing for the first round match." Hibiki positioned himself close enough that he could read the roster. His heart skipped a beat as he read the combatants' names. Brendan Birch versus Steven Stone. "Looks like they intend to start this contest off with a bang," said Red quietly from Hibiki's left. "And would you look at that? I'm all the way on the opposite end. If I were to end up facing Brendan or Steven, it wouldn't be until the final match." "It's a shame that won't be happening," said Kenta, pulling Brendan's beanie cap over his head. "Pokemon limit or not, that would have been an epic match." He stared back at the roster. It looks like Brendan's going to be appearing from the east gate of the arena, and Steven from the west. Which side are we on right now? Red shook his head. Both looked at Hibiki, but he merely shrugged. Kenta sighed. Well then, I'm going to have to be confined in here until showtime. Hibiki, you've got a job to do. A sharp series of knocks on the door broke his speech. Red? Came a nasally voice. It's Blue. Can you talk right now? The three of them exchanged hasty glances, and Red drew a finger across his throat. Can this wait? Red called back. The tournament's not until 10, and I still need some prep time. A different voice spoke from outside the door, and Hibiki saw Kenta tense in recognition. I'm sorry to bother you, Red. It's Brendan. Blue told me you were in here. I meant to welcome you as soon as you got in, but I was tied up with some league matters. Red said nothing, but looked inquiringly at Kenta. Hibiki, judging by the naked dread on his brother's face, could only imagine what must be going through his mind. It was probably something like, Oh my God! It's Brendan! I'm not ready for this yet! What do I do? If we let him in, will he recognize us? Will he freak out? Will he be angry? Will we have to knock him unconscious? Hibiki cringed as the last thought hit him. Where did that come from? Red? Brendan called again. In a flash, Kenta rushed forward, scooped up Hibiki, and charged towards a line of lockers at the far wall. Yeah, all right, just a second, Red murmured, as Kenta stuffed Hibiki into a locker. Kenta gave him an apologetic look, then slammed the metal door. A moment later, Hibiki heard the locker beside him shut as well. Both Nina brothers were stuffed away like an extra set of smelly workout clothes.